So in the last video, we took the data out of a database, a MySQL database, and using PHP we're able to pull it out and display it into an HTML table, so that way it's formatted in a decent way. I'm going to continue that code that I have here with some modifications. Instead of it being just plain text now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually give us a version that's going to allow us to update the data into the table. Now the only thing that you need to have in order for this to work, and if you think about databases, and if you're familiar with databases, you need to have a field that is unique for every record. And in most cases, if you work with databases, it's called the primary key. But what we need is a field that can easily be identified. A lot of times it's either an ID number or something similar to that. In this particular table, I'm going to go ahead and assume that topic will never repeat. Any of the topics I have in there will only be entered in there one time. So that's going to be considered kind of my primary key that we're going to be working with. So that's the only thing I need for it to work with the method that I'm going to show you. So I will tell you that I spent a lot of time trying to figure out the easiest way to do this and display it onto an easy, simple web page. And so hopefully it's something new that you may have not have seen anywhere else on the web. But I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do this one. And so let's go ahead and begin by copying all the code that I had here from the last lesson. And I'm going to go ahead and do a new page and paste it in there. And I need to save it as a PHP so that I can see my color coding for my page. So I'll just go ahead and choose save. And I'm going to go ahead and call this one mydata3.php. There we go. And so now I've got the PHP file saved. And let's go ahead and work with this. And so on the last lesson we did the loop, and we displayed every record on the loop, and we want to keep that going. But what we're going to do is, in addition to every record, we want every record to have its own form that I can actually put an update button on each one of these forms. So they're all going to be different forms for every record. And that's the kind of trick that I used here to make it so we can update each record we want individually and have them all being displayed on the same page. So what I'll do is go ahead and we're going to enter in here an echo tag. I'll space that one down and do an echo. And we need to begin a form. So I'll go ahead and use a form tag, which is a standard HTML form tag. The action attribute I need to tell it what page is going to be actually running the script, and we'll go ahead and use the same page that I'm working with. So mydata3.php, it's the name of my current web page. And then I also need to have on there the method, and I like and prefer to use the post method. So I'm going to go ahead and keep post down there. And I'll end that with the less than or the greater than symbol, the double quotes to end that double quote, and then a semicolon to end that line of code. I also need to close that form, so I'm going to come here on line 24 and I'll space that one down at the end and give myself room here to do an echo tag and close the form tag. There we go. Alright, now each one of these records that I have displayed as plain text, I'm going to need to actually take that data, and rather than having it being displayed in plain text, I need to display that as the value of a text box. And so I'm going to make some modifications to this one here on line 22, which is my first record. And I'll show you how to do that, and then kind of copy and paste the code for the other records that we have in here. What I'll need to do is I'm going to go ahead and space and concatenate to it an input tag. Input, which is for a typical form for a text box or any other type of fields that we're working with. Input type is going to equal a text, and we need to set a name for it to work with as well. And I'm going to go ahead and give it a name that's similar to what I see here that's being pulled out as my field name. I will use lowercase letters, and that's just the way that I've been taught with forms, is to always use lowercase for everything. So I'll just call it topic and leave it lowercase. And I also need to set a value. The value of the text box is going to actually be the data that's pulled out of my database. So what I'll need to do after the value is I'll go ahead and say value equals, and I can't type it in because every record is going to be different. So I'm going to go ahead and end the double quote there. And what I want to actually add in is this concatenated information that it pulled from my database itself. So I want that to end up being the value. So I'll go ahead and leave that as the value. And then what I'll need to do is I'm going to go ahead and have to end this, and actually that'll be the end of this particular tag, and then close the TD tag as well. And a little trick that I'll have to do, and this will show up if you don't do it, you'll see that your tags are a little bit different, is this closing TD tag. I'm going to have to put a space there so that it knows to end my TD tag there and that my value has been added to it, and they're not the same thing. So it's a little trick I had to do for that particular field. So what I'll do now is I'm going to go ahead and repeat this information for each one of the records. And so I'll put a space on this particular one, I'll put a space on this one as well at the very end, and this last part of this is going to stay now the same. The first part I'm going to go ahead and I'll grab this code that I just typed in, Control C, and I'll go ahead and paste that in there. And it looks like the only thing I need to change now in the code here is instead of the name being topic, I'm going to go ahead and give it the name, and that's the record that I'm going to pull into it. And then this last one, I'll go ahead and do another paste into there. The only thing that I'll need to change here is instead of the name being topic, I want the name to be attendance. And I'll need these names for whenever I'm pulling the data back for the update field when I run my script, so for the update query. And so I want to go ahead and make sure that those are typed in there. Like I said, I've kept them all lowercase for this case. And it looks like I've got everything else here. I'll go ahead and put a space there so it looks all the same. And let's go ahead and continue on now with our code. I'll need to have a hidden field for this, and the reason why I want the hidden field is because if I change my primary key for whatever reason, like the topic field that I have in my database, I need something that has the original value. So we're just going to go ahead and create a hidden type text box. So I'll go ahead and do an echo tag. We're going to go ahead and do the TD tag, and actually what I want to have here is going to be very similar to what I have on the first line, except for I want it to be all hidden. So let me just copy that for time's sake. I'll copy my primary key line that I have. I'll paste that in there. And a couple changes I want to make to this is the input, instead of the type being equal to text, I want to go ahead and say the type is going to be equal to hidden. And that'll create a hidden box for us that we will not see it displayed under our web page. And then I need to give it a name that's unique as well. And since I've already called this one hidden, I might as well just go ahead, or said it was hidden, I'll just give the name value as being hidden as well. And everything else is going to stay the same on that line. So I've got the hidden one there. Now it's time for our update button. So let's go ahead and add an update button. I'll do an echo. And we're going to go ahead and do the table data tag. Since this will be onto my table itself, I'll go ahead and add to it this time an input. And what's going to be different with this input is the fact it's going to be a submit type button with the name update added to it. So let's go ahead and say input. We're going to say the type is going to equal submit. And then we're going to go ahead and give it a name, and I'll just call it update. And then we're going to go ahead and give it a value. And the value is going to be what's the text that's going to be displayed on my button itself. And I'll just say update. And then we're going to go ahead and end that with the double quote. And let's go ahead and add to it the TD tag. So I'm going to go ahead and add to it now the quote. I'm going to put a space in there and close that TD tag out. There we go, and end that with a semicolon. And I believe I've got everything now set up here for my form itself. And so now the only thing that I'm missing is just whenever we hit the update button, it's going to go ahead and refresh our page, but it's going to have post information sitting there. And I need to run basically a function on my page. It's going to go ahead and check to see if a button has been pushed, like the update button has been pressed, and then we're going to go ahead and write some code to actually make it run and do an update itself. And so what I'll do is on line 12, let's see, line 12, no, let's go to line 11. I'm going to space this down. This is basically my own select information. It's going to pull all this information here. This is the last line that I really kind of worry about. Line 10 is where it's actually selected my database itself. So I've got the connection already established after line 10 here. We're going to go ahead now, and I just spaced it down and make our connection. Basically, we're going to write our code for if we have the update button pressed, we've already been connected to our database, and I want to be able to run an update query on that database with the new information. So I'm going to go ahead and do an if statement here, and we're going to go ahead and check to see if the update button has been set or basically activated. So what we need to do is put a set of parentheses in there after the if statement, and then we're going to go ahead now and add the function for is set inside of here, is set. And then I'll have to have another set of parentheses. I actually like to keep my spaces, there we go, to a minimum. So if is set, we've got the parentheses set for this particular function. Now what I want to go ahead and do is check for the $, and let's go underscore post. We want to see if the update button has been pressed. So I'll go ahead and fill in the information there for the update. Now I used the lowercase letters for the word update for the button, so I need to make sure they're all lowercase for this particular line here. And now I think the only thing that I'm missing, is going to be the curly brace to open up this. And I'm going to go ahead and space down a few and put an ending curly brace here, and then also the semicolon. So that'll be the end of this if statement. So now if it has been pressed, I actually want to run the update query itself. And so I'm going to go ahead and just create a variable. You could do it all in one step, but I'm going to go ahead and just do update let's go ahead, update query. There we go. I'm going to set this variable equal to my string that I want to use for the update. So let's go ahead and do an update command. It's SQL for the MySQL, basically a statement here to do update. We're going to go ahead and update the lectures table, and we're going to go ahead and tell it to set. Our topic is my first field that I want to set. I want the topic to equal, and so this is where we typically would normally let off, but what I'll need to do here is I'm going to go ahead and put in a set of single quotes, and within the single quotes I'm going to go ahead now and use that post information that I pulled from, or that I sent whenever we hit the update button, once we do the update button itself on a page. And that's going to go ahead and be the $, and then the underscore post, and then we're going to go ahead now and do the 2 square brackets, and we're going to go ahead and do topic in there. That was the lowercase name that I used right here, topic. I want that data to be basically populated here into this script. So I've got that set. I didn't use single quotes within the word topic. It will work without that. If I put the single quotes in there, it's going to go ahead and mess some things up. So I leave the single quotes out of that one there. What I'll need to do now is put a comma, and we're going to go ahead now and set the next one. So I'm going to set the name field, and the name field is going to go ahead and equal, and I'll put in the set of single quotes again, and that's going to equal the $, underscore post, and then I'm going to go ahead and put the square brackets and then use the word name. And again, that's all lowercase because I used name here as being all lowercase, and so that's what I want to use for that. At the end of this, I'm going to go ahead and put a comma, and the next thing that I want to set is attendance, so I'll go ahead and type in attendance. And for the attendance, I'm going to go ahead and set that equal to, and we're going to go ahead now and do the single quotes as well again. And on this particular one, we're going to go ahead and do $, post, post, and then the 2 square brackets, and we're going to type in attendance in here. And so I only have these 3 different fields that I'm working with, but if you've got a lot of fields, you're going to want to put in all the fields that are going to be displayed there from your page. And so now the attendance has been there. So what we'll need to do is in our code, and I'm going to have to space this out a little bit, I'm going to have to tell it which field to actually update. So we're going to use the where statement. There we go, where. And I want to say where my primary key field, which is topic, is going to end up equaling whatever was kept in that hidden field that we had. So this is the original field in case we changed it in our page itself. So topic is going to equal, and then we're going to go ahead and do 2 single quotes, and we're going to go ahead and paste in there the $, underscore post, and this one's going to be the 2 square brackets hidden. And that was that hidden text box that we had set. So after hidden, what I'll need to do now is, after that single quote, is I'm going to go ahead and end the double quote and end with a semicolon. So that's my entire statement itself. That whole query is going to be run now on this line here that I'm going to type in. I'm going to type in MySQL underscore query, and we're going to go ahead and, it's a function, so I need to put the 2 parentheses there. I'm going to tell it to run $update query, which is that whole bunch of code that I have right up here. To run that, and we're going to use our connection. So put a comma, $, and then con was what I used here as a variable for my connection itself to the database. Alright, and I need to end that with a semicolon. Let me go ahead and save the page, and I'm going to go ahead and open up my browser now, and let's see what happens here. I'll need to go to localhost, and I have them stored in the lessons folder, and you can see my data 3, and it looks like I have an error on line 35. So let's go ahead and find out what my error was. Scroll down here to line 35, and it looks like I put my quote, double quote, there we go, in the wrong spot. Okay, let me resave my page, come back to my browser, and trust me, if you've worked with PHP code, I'm sure that's happened plenty of times to you. So now you can see that it's displayed the 2 records that I have, the PHP and MySQL, and I've got, let's see, Matt. So let's go ahead and try it. I'm going to actually change that to just Matt, hit update, and it's been updated on my database. And I can actually open up, if I use PHP I can see PHP oops, I need to do localhost first, PHP and let's take a look at the snippets database, and I'm going to use the lectures table. And you can see that here it is, Matt and Matthew. Let's make sure this is going to work. Instead of it being Matt, let's go ahead and type in a different name. Let's type in Eli. I hit update, come back to my table, refresh it, and now you can see that the name has been changed. And so we've got this to work where we can actually change anything in here, any of the records. And the reason why I can change any record is because of that hidden field. So if instead of I wanted it to be PHP, I just wanted it to be PHP2 for whatever reason, and I hit update, check my table, and refresh it, you'll see that in my table itself, it's actually going to say PHP2. So I can actually update my primary key in any other field that I have here on my database using this method. So in this field, this video, we've gone ahead and done the update. In the next video, we're going to go ahead and attempt to put in a delete button so we can actually delete a record from my database as well.